Well then, yeah, I don't quite know how to start this. Um, a new Sonic game got announced just yesterday on the Summer Game Fest. Uh, kinda unexpected, kinda expected, I don't know. I guess we can already watch the trailer. It's like, it shouldn't be too long. Oh, I just noticed Fang is already in that shot. So yeah, this level looks interesting. So I'll get to talking a bit more about what we see in a sec. But yeah, basically Superstars is a new classic game, or in style of the classic games. First of all, this was the Summer Games Fest for those of you who have missed it, which was yesterday, like started yesterday, had a bunch of announcements, Final Fantasy Ever Crisis, like Final Fantasy 7 Ever Crisis, Rebirth, etc., etc. And to give my quick summary of Summer Games Fest for what my opinion of it was fine, nothing too amazing. A lot of it was stuff we already knew about. So really the most interesting part was the Final Fantasy VII stuff and Sonic. Oh, and the fact that they had Pokemon with guns, but that's just weird. It's weird that they announced the Sonic game now. Considering Frontiers just released last year, it's still very much in the process of getting updates and everything and all that. So it is actually very interesting that they decide to do it this year already, but I'm not complaining, obviously, like, more Sonic is more Sonic, but it's an interesting choice, and I think it's interesting and worthwhile mentioning it. But yeah, looking at the trailer, there's some interesting stuff. Of course, that it's now 3D, or 2.5D more, with them using the model from Generations and Forces, or at least one based on that. I don't know if it's actually the same model or not. The physics seem interesting. I have not heard too much about... Like, I have obviously not seen much of the gameplay besides the trailer, but it looks relatively similar to the classic games. Like, slope physics seem to be almost identical. I don't know about the air physics, which a speedrunner I watched, Hats, I think we rated him once, mentioned that the air physics are a bit weird. And I don't know how exactly, but jumping seems to be a bit different. They seem smaller jumps in a way, and I'm not sure if that's just me. Like, if you look at that jump again. Feels kinda low, but I'm not sure if that's just me being more used to other games. Having rail grinding is interesting, because the Rush games had rail grinding. I'm pretty sure the Advanced games had rail grinding, so it's not new to 2D Sonic, but it's new to classic Sonic. Interesting about this is the battening here. That's a model from, I'm pretty sure, Lost World, so they seem to be reusing some assets, which, by the way, is fine. I personally don't have an issue with reused assets. I'm just curious if they how many new actual enemies they have. Because that's, for example, also just a crab meat, even if it's very pixelated. I like how, if you look at this level, we see it in two different versions. One time at noon and one time at sunset. The different abilities, of course, of the characters are back, which shouldn't come to any surprise. I'm curious, can Tails recurl into a ball after flying, like cancel his flight? I'm curious, I'm not sure if there's a drop dash in this. I haven't seen Sonic do a drop dash at least. And yeah, Knuckles, Tails, Amy and Sonic are playable, apparently. And you can play with friends. This stage looks very interesting. I have no idea where it is. I'm curious to hear about it. I like the aesthetic. Although I kinda wish the rings and enemies and stuff were sprites instead of like pixelated models. Because like, if you're already doing a retro reference, you might as well... voxel models, yeah. You might as well go all in. But it might just be going more with the aesthetic, like, in the background. I don't know. I mean, in general, I would prefer if this was a pixel art game, but that's just me. And I don't hate the models, mind you. I like how it looks. I'm curious about the abilities, because, spoiler alert, you apparently get abilities for collecting the Chaos Emeralds. And I'm curious how that will work. The bosses look cool. And yeah, apparently Fang is in the game as well, as an antagonist, not as a playable character. Which I'm curious if that decision might have been influenced by Triple Trouble 16-bit and its popularity. It looks interesting, but I'm not sure if I'm sold on it yet. Like, there are still some questions I have about it. I mean, I'm probably going to play it simply so I can stream it, but you know. That giant fish Batmake looks awesome. And like, there's an ability to walk on wall, one to swim up waterfalls. Which, by the way, is a neat thing to use the waterfalls that are anyway in a lot of Sonic levels. And use those as a level gimmick, more or less. Even if I get the feeling it will often lead to just nothing. Because there are just a lot of waterfalls in Sonic levels. But we'll see. It's interesting that they bring the Sonic 1 special stages back, considering absolutely no one cares for them, as far as I know. Which is probably not true. There are people who like them. Again, the bosses are really interesting with, for example, the attack pattern here with the different spheres. And this discount Death Egg Robot. Interesting to use this as a first boss or second boss as well, but this will probably follow the formula of Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Mania as well, where we have like a mid-boss in the middle of each stage, which is just a more powerful robot, and then a major boss, which is an Eggman boss, like actually controlled by Eggman. The ability to multiply is weird, but it could be interesting. Just kinda curious what they are going to do with that ability beyond just attacking boss, but to be fair, there's not much of a reason to do anything else with the ability, and that's fine. It has a purpose and it does that purpose well. That section feels weird but interesting. Like the squid section. Or jellyfish section. I like that the jellyfish actually have somewhat of the personality of the characters. Also obvious reference to Pac-Man. But like the more neutral expression of Tails, the slightly cocky, confident expression of Sonic, the angry look on Knuckles, you get the idea. The models are an interesting new approach. It also reminds me with the look, kinda reminds me of the Kirby remake, Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Which I haven't played yet. I want to play it at some point, but I didn't have the time. But yeah, that's something it reminds me of as well, with just the way it looks in general kind of reminds me of it. Not quite the same outlines the Return to Dreamland had, but a similar vibe, I guess, with the models and the 2.5D. The abilities are interesting. We have like walking on walls like this, which is probably going to be a bit situational, considering we barely see any walls throughout the trailer. There are basically no walls, so it feels kind of redundant to make it an ability when it could just be a level element, which I think Lilac, what was it called, Freedom Planet, has such a gimmick as well. So, like level gimmick. So it feels a bit weird having the half pipe as a specific ability you unlock, but I also don't mind it too much. Here's the thing. Since you unlock the abilities via the Chaos Emeralds, which by the way, they say that on the page for Superstars. Basically, on the page they mention stuff like aided Fang is an antagonist here. Yeah, navigate gorgeous, never before seen environment solo or with up to 3 other players and stop Dr. Eggman, Fang, and a mysterious new adversary, from converting the island's giant animals into badniks before. Oh, giant animals. I didn't know that was a thing because the trailer kinda doesn't show it much. I mean, there's the giant badnik, obviously, but it isn't much addressed in the trailer. Because I think it isn't really relevant. This is a classic Sonic game. The story is going to be, we're going to stop Eggman. I'm honestly the most interested in what this new adversary is. Which we know from a tweet. Like, I don't know what the exact source for this tweet is, so take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, they basically mentioned that the new character has been designed by the original designer of Sonic, Naoto Oshima. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm probably mispronouncing it. The biggest point here is A, the new enemy, which we don't, like antagonist, which we don't know who that is going to be. It's going to release this fall for the Northern Hemisphere, because the Southern Hemisphere, it is currently fall there. But yeah, it's going to be, this is probably the most weird thing about all of this, slash controversial, slash whatever. It's going to be $60, like $59.99, which is a lot considering I could get Frontiers for less than it by now, if I remember correctly. So, a bit of a weird decision on their end. Is it on Steam by now? Because that's another thing I noticed, it isn't on Steam so far. It is going to be on Steam, but it isn't yet. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering as well. This is a lot for a classic Sonic game. Also considering Mania, which it is still a very good classic game, and that's €20. I think even Mania could be a bit more expensive. Like, I genuinely think Mania is good, but even Mania isn't $60 good. And that's a whole different discussion about game pricing. It has co-op multiplayer, which is cool, I guess. The emeralds unlock powers, which is also said on the homepage, like harness the power of the emeralds, multiply, swim up waterfalls, change form, and more. Which A feels very much like the Wisps, which I like the Wisps, personally. I don't know if using the design philosophy is necessarily good. I think it's probably going to work better in a 2D game than a 3D game like Forces, Lost World, and Colors Wii. I think the Wisps in Colors DS were excellent. Like, genuinely good. But yeah, apparently the island is called North Star Island. Make your Fists of the North Star joke now. Drop in and drop out co-op is cool. Like, that's genuinely cool. Going to be curious how that actually turns out, but it's probably going to be fine. Fang appearing is a bit weird. So Fang has a weird status in the series, right? On the one hand, Fang is pretty popular. He has been in several fan games, Sonic Roboblast 2, recently Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit, which, to be fair, is just a remake of the game where he originally appeared in. So Fang reappearing is interesting, because the last game he appeared was Sonic Fighters, which was ages ago, pun not intended. And yeah, subscribe! No, there are a lot of interesting screenshots here where you see some of the levels. This looks really interesting. I like the aesthetic of like the scrap combined with the more jungle kind of vibe. This looks like a generic Green Hill, but it's pretty, so I'm not complaining. Amy, of course, has a hammer and stuff. Knuckles can glide. This looks like he's doing the super peel out, which is interesting, because that implies the super peel out will be back. Which I personally don't really care for the super peel out much, but it is a neat tool, and I don't think removing it would serve any point, so having it is neat. Nothing out of the ordinary, obviously, but neat. And a neat way to, you know, try out a new aesthetic. They have a newsletter, which you can subscribe to the newsletter and get the code for, like, basically like Sonic Frontiers had the SA2 shoes, the soap shoes, which you could get with subscribing to the newsletter. The same they have now with, interestingly, Amy's modern design, which I guess makes somewhat sense because Amy got like the most radical redesign of all of them. So having an option between both of them is neat, I guess. What is a bit weird if we go on this, you have to select one of the platforms it's on, but when I subscribed to it, there was Windows as an option. That isn't an option anymore. And Steam also isn't an option, which is, I'm kinda worried it will be Epic exclusive again. At which point, screw that shit. We'll see how that will develop, I guess. The name, Superstars, by the way, is like, it's kinda boring. I don't really care too much, but it's kinda boring. Like, it's such a generic, oh, we made a new game that is supposed to appeal to all kinds of people. How do we call it? Superstars. You get what I mean. Which is also funny because it coincides with... Turns out there's a game called Sega Superstars. And I mean, for a while now. Which I guess that's why they don't see an issue with. Realistically, who remembers Sega Superstars? So that's my rant about the name of the game. I find this section in the trailer interesting, by the way. I don't quite know what this is supposed to be. Is this supposed to be a new ability, or is this like a special stage? I don't know. And it looks cool, don't get me wrong, it's just odd, I guess. Definitely not what I would have expected. Here it does say it releases on Steam, which is interesting. And now to the elephant in the room, I guess. Except that's the weird part, nobody really talks about, at least as far as I'm aware. So, a little bit of context first. Aegis is a union of workers at Sega of America. They have recently started efforts to unionize, and if you check out just a few hours, I think, before the reveal, Aegis made a tweet talking about Sega management trying to, or deciding to interfere with their efforts to unionize, which I'm not an expert on how unionization works. I think it's a good thing. Unions are pretty nifty, I think. I don't quite understand what exactly happened, and as far as I understand, this tweet doesn't actually say anything about what Sega management did. So, it's kind of weird. This is like the only source I can find for that as well, like the actual Twitter account of Aegis. Sega hasn't made a statement yet, at least as far as I know. I'd need to check. The issue is currently, I don't know what happened. We have basically no other source than this tweet. I want to believe them because, you know, again, unions are pretty good, and I want to believe that if they are saying Sega is interfering with them, they don't just say it for no reason, obviously. But I don't have much of a reason to believe them right now. Like, again, this is just a tweet saying Sega decided to interfere, not showing us anywhere where they decided to interfere, how they decided to interfere, so as a layperson this is difficult to comprehend. Yet I still think it's important to point out, because, again, unions are important to secure workers' rights, to get companies and workers on an equal playing field, so they can actually discuss proper working conditions. That's good, and that should be supported. So I thought it was important to point out, especially in light of that new announcement of a new Sonic game, that happens just as Aegis announces that Sega decided to interfere. I'm not saying don't play the new game, neither are they saying it. In fact, they ask of Sega fans to retweet the thread, so if you have Twitter, do that. The petition they have is basically writing a letter at Sega management to request them to actually cooperate with Aegis. And of course continue playing the games, because at the end of the day they don't really benefit that much if people just stop playing Sega games, because at that point they are not making money, Sega is not making money, nobody is really happy. It is important to point out during all of this. This is happening, and I urge all of you to keep up with this. I'm trying to keep up with it as well. Probably will mention stuff on stream. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention before. Early trailers on the website had initially a different title screen for this game. I don't know what it means. It might just be a working title. But yeah, originally, apparently this was called Sonic Orion, which I guess the reason they changed the name was because it's too similar to Origins, with literally the same characters and everything, so I can see them going like, okay, maybe that's not the best name. But I thought it was interesting to bring that up. It's especially interesting because that implies that they changed it relatively late in development, or made the trailer relatively early in development, but considering how polished the trailer already looks, I don't think so. So yeah, that's my basic thoughts about Sonic Superstars. It's an interesting thing, and I'm excited to see where it goes, but I'm also like, there's a lot of weird things going on with this, and I'm curious to see how it goes. Wait, editing Freud here. A few additions I wanted to make now that some time has passed. It's currently Monday evening, which is why this video is probably going to release a bit late. There have been some updates since the original reveal. Specifically, there has been a new gameplay reveal on IGN Japan, which showed a few interesting things. The gameplay is as expected. It looks good, so that's at least something. It looks a bit fast, but I think it's fine. Like, it feels like you're rushing through levels pretty quickly, but the levels are also pretty big. An interesting thing they've shown is some characters have been moving in the background, as in, for example, when you run through a part of the level with Sonic, there has been Tails, who has been doing stuff in the background, which is interesting. I don't know what that implies for multiplayer, but it could be neat to see the world being a bit more alive, in a way. You're not the only one doing things, even if you're playing alone. They have shown the new antagonist, who apparently is called Trip. They look spiky and kinda lizard-like. Honestly, it reminds me a bit of Espio. But we are not sure what animal they are, or what exactly the thing is. We only know they are called Trip, and they are tripping a lot. They seem a bit clumsy. They also have shown the big animals you free, which look kinda ridiculous, not gonna lie. I think the Triple Trouble 16-bit creator called this one Big Flickers. Do with that what you will. And yeah, in an interview on Summer Games Fest, Iizuka revealed that Asus, the game company, is working on the game, which they don't have the best track record so far. Their games range from meh to alright to Balan Wonderworld, so I don't know. I wouldn't be too worried the game looks good. Just because they had some missteps in the past doesn't necessarily mean they are incompetent, you know. I still think they can make a good game. The Mania team won't work on it. They apparently had plans to work with them on something in the past, but guess the teams more or less split up. Which, it's of course a shame that they probably won't work on official Sonic stuff in a while, but it's a complicated situation, so... There has been some interesting stuff on Summer Games Fest. Persona 5 Tactica has been announced, which looks really awesome. They have also announced the new Bethesda game, which... what was it called? Doesn't matter. That looks really sick. Regarding the Aegis situation, Sega has still made no statement. I found basically nothing on the whole situation. I found one article from a game developer which talks about it, but they have requested a statement from Sega and they haven't gotten anything yet, so I don't think we will get an answer anytime soon. So yeah, that's the basic situation, I guess. And that's everything that happened since, at least everything I'm aware of that happened since the reveal on Thursday. Thank you all for watching. This is weird for me. I've never done something like that. Game journalism isn't really my main thing, you know. I mainly do gameplay videos. But this is an interesting topic and I like doing this, so I might do more of this, I don't know yet. Either way, thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I see you all next time.